I'm a freshman at a small university. I might have found a way to avenge my roommate's death. Final part. I marched up to Bryson's door with a passion I hadn't felt in a long time. Knock, knock, knock. Hey Bryson, open up. There's something I need to talk to you about. I screamed into the wooden frame. Not when you talk to me like that. Use your fucking manners and I'll think about it, a muffled voice responded. Oh, sorry. Can you open up, please? Thank you. Was that so hard? Bryson said as the door swung open. Get in here and make it quick. I've got some homework to finish up. Josh is dead. Bryson stared at me blankly as if he hadn't processed a word I'd told him. The feeling of his dull, gray eyes burning into me sent a chill rippling down my spine. What did you say? Bryson demanded. Josh is dead. I found his body in the vending machine. According to Clarissa, the laundryman got him. Bryson began hyperventilating. He grabbed fistfuls of his hair and started pacing aimlessly around the room. No. I told him what would happen. I told him so many fucking times that he needed to follow the rules. This isn't my fault. It couldn't be my fault. He didn't listen. Nothing I could have done. Yeah, that's right. There was nothing I could have done. Wait. Bryson stopped his manic rant and glared at me, narrowing his eyes. You didn't speak directly to Clarissa, did you? How do you know this? No, I didn't speak to her at all this time. The front desk girl asked her indirectly. And on top of that, I asked the laundryman if he knew anything about Josh. He was the one who told me to check the vending machines. Phew, okay. At least you didn't screw yourself over. I can't believe this shit. I had a bad feeling about that moron from the very beginning. I should have trusted my gut. No, this isn't your fault. It's no one's. We shouldn't have to follow a bunch of tedious rules to avoid dying at the hands of some twisted paranormal entities. It's not fair. That's why I want to put a stop to it. Bryson sighed, taking a seat on his bed. Sit, he requested, patting the spot next to him. I diligently obeyed. I always knew this day would come. Hell, deep down, I wanted it to. I always thought I'd be the one to bring about this place's downfall, but I guess I just needed someone to help me do it. And now it's clear to me that you're the one I've been waiting for. But before I help you, there's something you should know. Clayton, He trailed off before taking a deep breath and continuing. I've never told anyone this, but I'm dead. I know it's a weird thing to have to acknowledge, so you don't have to keep going. Bryson glanced up at me. I watched as his countenance melted from one of shock to acceptance. No. I have to get this off my chest. I've kept quiet about it for 23 years. 23 miserable fucking years. This is probably the only chance I'm going to get. I nodded, solemnly meeting his gaze. I understand. I'm all ears. It happened in April of '99. I was a sophomore living here. It was weird living in the dorms again, but all my friends commuted to school every day, so I didn't really have many other decent options. And I'd braved this place for a year already. Why couldn't I do it again, right? I was such an idiot. God, I was so fucking stupid. He paused, taking a moment to steady himself. Sorry. Still gets me emotional. So, it was almost exam week, and everyone was stressed. 9 more days and I would have been able to go home. I just had to focus on my studies and ignore these damn entities for 9 days. I was so close. So close to going home and spending at least another 4 months with friends and family. But I couldn't do it. I want to see them again. I want to see them so fucking bad. I want to spend time with my buddies down by the lake. I want to hear my dad's hearty laugh when I tell him about my crazy misadventures. But most of all, I just want to hug my mom one last time and tell her how much I love her. Those things. They took that away from me. My whole world, everything I truly cared about, was ripped away from me in a matter of seconds. And the monstrosity that did it didn't give it a second thought. Bryson broke down. Tears streamed down his face, and I placed a hand on his shoulder as the sobs racked his body. Those were the most soul-shattering cries I've heard in my entire life. My heart broke for him. Bryson had lost so much, but he'd stayed strong for all these years. That only further steeled my resolve. I needed to end those wretched beasts. For Josh, Bryson, and every other victim they'd claimed. Once he'd dried his tears, Bryson gazed up at me, determined to finish his story. "This is my punishment, Clayton. I was too arrogant. I thought I had the freaks in this place wrapped around my pinky finger. But they were really just waiting for me to slip up. And eventually, I did. I broke Rule 11. I heard the screech outside my window. If I had to describe it, it sounded like a demented mashup of a tiger and a pterodactyl. Deep and menacing, yet piercing and shrill at the same time. I had plenty of time to prepare, and I knew the drill. No sooner had I thrown the blanket over my head, did I hear an ear-splitting crash from directly beside me. Obviously, I was terrified, but curiosity got the better of me. A shudder rippled through Bryson's body. Through all the anger and regret, I could sense something else. A deep-seated, primal instinct swam just below the surface of his words, one that very few people ever have the misfortune to experience. True, unabated fear. That thing. No description will do it justice. But I'll try. It was big, almost as tall as the ceiling. Its footsteps were loud as thunder, and they shook the floor as it walked. I shouldn't have looked. It was almost to the door when I stole a peek. What I saw haunts me to this day. Whatever crashed into my room that night was some disgusting bird-like creature. Disheveled, black feathers spouted from its body in rough patches. Its exposed skin was covered in scabs and festering sores. Its legs were long and slender, and they oozed pus. As for the feet, they were massive and human. They were missing several toes, and the ones that remained had cracked, decaying nails. But the face. Even all these years later, I still remember it clear as day. When I glanced out from under that blanket, it was staring at me, like it knew. It had the face of a man, but it was all wrong. The skin was completely missing, leaving red, pulsating veins and sinew open to the elements. It had no lips, so its jagged, knife-like teeth were constantly bared. And those eyes. It had 3 of them scattered unevenly across its features. And they were all looking right at me. Then, well, I ended up here. I won't tell you what it did to me. I'll spare you that much. We sat in silence for a long time. If what Bryson said was true, I had to be quick. If I could save even one student from suffering a similar fate, my efforts wouldn't be in vain. But where would I even start? Bryson was the one who broke the silence. Thanks for listening. Feels good to finally get that out after all these years, he said, flashing me a weak smile. Any time, man. Thanks for opening up to me. I'm just down the hall if you ever need to talk. I appreciate that. But I don't think I'm going to need it. I'm going to help you bring this place down. I used to think that I deserved to be here. That my punishment was to guide all of you incoming students and try my best to prevent your deaths. But now I see that my purpose is bigger than that. I think that deep down, I've known that all along, but now I finally have the strength to do what needs to be done. I nodded. Right. Do you have a plan? I'm sorta grasping at straws. I didn't really think this whole thing through, I admitted, rubbing the back of my neck. Yeah. Ido. Bryson stood up and walked over to his nightstand. He retrieved an item from it and returned to his spot beside me. Take this. The dean is going to meet with you to discuss your potential leave of absence, and he'll probably try to strong-arm you into leaving the university on account of what you've seen. It always happens like this. Seen it dozens of times. Dean Michaels. He's the one pulling the strings behind this shitshow. He's got ties to the occult. He's the reason these things exist. His cult members see these things as some sort of deities, and they need sacrifices. So here's how we're going to stop him, Bryson said, handing me a letter. I furrowed my brows in confusion. I don't understand. How is a letter going to make all this evil shit go away? You'll see. Come up with an excuse to have him look over it. Say it's a request to withdraw. I dunno. Just, whatever you do, do not read it yourself, okay? I stared at the blank envelope. Then it clicked. I began to understand what Bryson was getting at. Okay, I'll get it done. Thank you, Bryson. You're a hero. No, I'm not. I'm just doing what should have been done a long time ago. Now, get outta here. You've got an important meeting to prepare for, he said, ushering me to the door. Wait, but what'll happen to you? I shouted as the door began to shut in my face. I don't know. But whatever happens, I'm ready. Bryson smiled at me through the thin sliver of space before I heard the door click shut. I made my way back to my room, my mind racing. Bryson's story was stuck in my head like a broken record. His untimely death, the winged creature that crashed through his window, my meeting with the dean. It was all so much to take in. Little did I know, the insanity would only continue to ramp up. I saw it immediately upon entering the room. A letter was lying on my bed. I knew for a fact that it hadn't been there before. I hesitantly picked it up and began to read. To whom it may concern. Dean Michaels has requested your presence. Please arrive at the administration building no later than 10:30 a.m. Sincerely, the office of the dean. I pursed my lips as I tossed the note into the waste bin. Seriously? My roommate was dead, and that asshole couldn't even address me by my name? I was going to make him pay. Knock, knock, knock. 3 rapid knocks suddenly interrupted my train of thought. Dorm electrician. I've got to report that dash. I didn't give him a chance to finish. I'd had it with the bullshit. Go fuck yourself. There's nothing broken in here. A deep, menacing voice instantly responded. My eyes grew wide as the door began to rattle in its frame. What did you say? Are you calling me a liar? No, I'm sorry. I meant to say that there's, a problem in the bathroom. Yeah, that's it. I was the one who filed the report. There's a light out in there. I waited with bated breath, hoping that I hadn't screwed up too badly. Oh, well, why didn't you start with that? I'll get it fixed in a jiffy. I exhaled a sigh of relief. That cemented it. By the next day, either the entities would be gone, or I would. Either way, something had to give. I awoke to my alarm blaring in my ear. I jabbed blindly at the stop button before glancing at the time. 10:02 a.m. Shit. I slept through my fucking alarm again. I shouted, leaping out of bed. I darted around my room, throwing together an outfit, while simultaneously running through my daily hygiene regimen. Yeah, I might have left with mismatched socks, and I may have had my shirt on backwards, but I managed to make it out of the dorm in 20 minutes flat. The administration building was on the other side of campus. I had to run for it if I was going to make it on time. I took off into a dead sprint, adrenaline surging through my veins. A sudden thought sent me into a panic as I grinded to a stop. I frantically felt around in my pants. No. Please don't tell me. And then I found it. The letter. It was protruding from the back pocket of my jeans. Close one, I muttered as I resumed my mad dash for the admin building. By the time I arrived, I was a sweat-soaked, wheezing mess. I stumbled up to the student working the front desk at 10:30 on the nose. I'd made it by the skin of my teeth. Ashy. I need to, fuck, that took a lot out of me. I have an appointment with the dean. Name's Clayton, I sputtered, struggling to catch my breath. Both my legs and my lungs were on fire, offering me a not-so-subtle reminder to get my lazy ass in shape. I'm not seeing you in the system. Are you sure you have an appointment? Yeah, I got a note yesterday. The boy eyed me suspiciously. Oh yeah, where is the note then? It's right, oh. I must have forgotten it in my dorm room. Well, I'm sorry then. There's nothing I can do for dash. Clayton. Clayton Atkinson, correct. A well-dressed woman carrying a clipboard marched up to me. She wore a thin, gray pencil skirt with a gray blazer and a pair of black high heels. If I hadn't known any better, I would have thought she was the dean. Yeah, that's me. Who are you? The woman held her chin high, glaring down at me like I was a pile of steaming garbage. You will address me as Mrs. Thompson. I am the dean's assistant. Now, follow me. The dean is on a very tight schedule, and you are late. Geez, nice to meet you too, lady. We proceeded down the hall and into the elevator. We stood in awkward silence for at least a solid minute on the ride up. I tried my best to break the ice, to no avail. So, it's been pretty nice outside lately. Mrs. Thompson scoffed, failing to offer me so much as a glance. You have been exercising in it, I see. You smell like you've been living in a dumpster filled with rotting meat and raw sewage. Thanks for letting me know? The gracious ding of the elevator couldn't come quick enough. Of course, the dean's office happened to be located on the top floor. Just my luck. I followed Mrs. Wonderful down a desolate hallway before we reached the door. An engraved, gold-plated plaque jutted from its surface. Dr. Allen Michaels. I took a deep breath as Mrs. Thompson knocked. This was it. Dr. Michaels, your 10:30 is here. Bring him in, a muffled voice requested. Though its tone was jovial, something about it made my skin crawl. Mrs. Thompson pushed open the door. Inside, it was eerily dark. The blinds were drawn, and the only light source was that creeping in through the cracks. Once my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I could make out a figure sitting behind a desk at the far end of the room. Thank you, Justine. You are dismissed. Clayton, is it? Come, boy. Take a seat. I reluctantly obeyed as the door clicked shut behind me, and Mrs. Thompson disappeared from view. Blood pounded in my ears with each step I took. Every synapse in my brain screamed at me to turn around and run, but I fought off the urge. I had to follow through with this. Once I reached the desk, I pulled out a chair and anxiously took a seat. My heart began to palpitate wildly in my chest when I got a chance to drink in the dean's features. He was ghostly white, and his hair was slicked back, cheap pomade glistening within. He wore a wide grin on his face, sharp, pointed canines gleaming at me through the inky black. His eyes looked predatory, hungry. I couldn't be certain, but for a moment I could have sworn that I could see a flash of red jolt across his pupils. Mr. Atkinson, it is a pleasure to make your acquaintance. It's a shame that it has to be under these circumstances, but it is a pleasure nonetheless, he stated, that manic grin never wavering. Likewise. Now to the matter at hand. I'm sure that you have no doubt in your mind about why I called you here. I wanted to offer my personal condolences in regards to your roommate, Joshua. Rest assured that his family has been notified, and the cost of funeral arrangements have been shouldered by the school. As for you, he said, propping his elbows onto the desk and resting his chin in his hands, you must be in a state of shock. Yeah, I guess you could say that. All right, then. I have a proposal for you. Would you like to hear it? He hummed, his eyes lighting up. I felt like a mouse being cornered by a cat. Yeah. What do you propose? Seeing as this is your freshman year, we will give you a clean slate. We'll wipe any records of the failing grades you would receive for dropping out at this point in the semester, and we will refund your tuition payment. In return, you can take as much time as you need to grieve, and we will consider you to be reaccepted to the university once your mental state has improved. Would that be sufficient? What about Josh? What are you going to tell his family? They deserve to know the truth. The truth? Joshua took his own life. In his suicide note, he requested to be cremated. We were only following through with his final wishes, he snarled, producing a note from the pile on his desk. I read its contents in disbelief. Whoever had written it had emulated Josh's handwriting perfectly. What is that? Josh didn't kill himself. He was murdered by one of those monsters. Oh, you have it all wrong, my boy. I'm sorry to say that your roommate did take his own life. And besides, he said, leaning in close to my ear. He whispered softly, barely loud enough to hear, nobody will believe you. Just look at what happened when you reported it to the police. My blood turned to ice. I didn't have a choice. Even if I tried to tell somebody what happened, I would end up looking like the crazy one. He had me right where he wanted me. All right. I will consider it, I said, taking the letter from my back pocket and extending it to him. If you read my letter of resignation from the school. That's it. Just a glance, and I'll be out of your hair forever. You have my word that I won't tell a soul about anything I've experienced in my time here, I said, staring into the floor as the dean snatched the letter from my grip. Out of my hair forever, you say? I may as well get this over with, then. He greedily ripped open the envelope and began to read. In a matter of seconds, his Cheshire grin flipped to a frown. He scowled at me, a menacing hatred pouring from his gaze. You little shit. This isn't a resignation letter. I swear, I'll rip you limb from limb. Dean Michaels lunged at me, his icy fingers squeezing my throat with a vice grip. I smirked at him through the pain. Tough luck. You just broke Rule 6. I clenched my eyes shut as he continued to increase the pressure. I could feel myself running out of breath. I clawed and writhed and bit, with no progress. And then, just as I thought I'd pass out, I was freed. I hesitantly opened my eyes as the room was bathed in light. Dr. Michaels stood by the window with his hand on the blinds as the smell of burning flesh assaulted my nostrils. I watched in both amazement and disgust as he plunged his clawed fingers into his eye sockets and began to pull erratically. I turned away, unable to stomach the gruesome scene. I no longer want the burden of sight. Dahlia, why? Why would you write something so sinister? Why? His voice became weaker and weaker as the stench grew stronger. After I could no longer hear his cries, I glanced at the pile of burning flesh before me. Blood was seeping into the carpet from the dean's empty eye sockets, and his eyeballs were nowhere to be found. I rose to my feet and powered through the rancid odor to make my way over to him. I spat on his decaying corpse, smearing the spittle into the back of his smoldering skull with the heel of my shoe. That's for all the pain you've inflicted. I hope you rot in hell. I gave him one last hearty kick to the nose before I walked out the door. A sense of satisfaction crept over me as I walked away. After all, I planned to keep my end of the bargain. As I stepped into the frigid winter air, I could sense an immediate change. Once the veil was lifted, everyone began to see Eaton Hall for what it really was, a structurally failing pile of bricks that should have been torn down ages ago. One call to code enforcement was all it took to have the building demolished. I left immediately, so I didn't have the fortune of seeing the place torn down, but I'm willing to bet that it was a breathtaking sight. Of course, the school covered up the dean's death. Headlines claimed that he was hit by a garbage truck while crossing the street. I'm one of the only ones who knows what really happened to him. I hate that I wasn't able to bring his actions to light, but I revel in the fact that he died a painful, gruesome death. He deserved nothing less. I never saw Bryson again. I don't know what became of him, but I truly hope that he's gained the peace he sought for so long. Something tells me that he's moved on to a better place. As for me, I've decided to go to trade school. I'm thankful for the memories I've made, but after everything I've been through, I think college life just isn't in the cards.